Welcome to the On-Target HTML5, the Tools of Web Development Training. This is part of the core training series for On-Target HTML5. And in this tutorial, we're going to look at the tools of web development. This tutorial should be completed prior to completing any of the technical lessons tutorials for the On-Target HTML5 website. This tutorial covers the web development tools or the text editors that you will need to successfully complete the technical lessons. The basic tools of web development. In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to the text tools needed to begin your web development journey. What I plan to do with this lesson is introduce you to some of the text editors that we use to design websites. Here we will lay the foundation for many hours of lessons to come on how to properly develop and design your web pages. In the development of our web pages, I'll be using Sublime Text 2 as my text editor. I will occasionally use Dreamweaver and a few of the other text editors that are available for the PC, so that you can see differences in the tools and how they operate. I've used Sublime Text 2 for many years, and I'm very comfortable with using that text editor, and that will be my text editor of choice for my lessons. I'll be working on a PC, but all the lessons can be performed just as easily on a Macintosh. You may use any text editor that you prefer. There are many to choose from, as you will learn in this lesson. A good text editor is what's required to write the scripting languages that we will be covering in our lessons. We will cover many different text editors in this lesson, and it is my suggestion that you try a variety of them and find one that you're comfortable with. There are many available both for the PC and the Macintosh. And something to remember, just because a text editor costs money does not make it any better than some of the ones that are free. There are many text editors out there that have no cost associated with them that are excellent text editors. You'll see what I mean as we work through this tutorial. So let's talk about some of the more popular text editors that are available. Alright, so let's talk about some of the more popular text editors that are available for the Macintosh. The first one we're going to talk about is Text Wrangler. Text Wrangler is a free version of BBEdit and offers a broad range of support for different programming language. It has excellent find and replace functionality, which you'll find very useful as you develop your web pages. This is a very reliable and functional tool, and when you consider the price, you can't go wrong. Text Wrangler is free. You'll notice that I have the URL at the bottom of the page. Let's go ahead and bring up their URL so that you can see what I'm talking about here. And this is the website for Text Wrangler. It's written by Bare Bones. It's a little brother to BBEdit. It's got some excellent documentation. It's got a free tour. It's got your download link so you can actually go and download this one. And this is a really good text editor for the Macintosh. Alright, the next one we want to look at for the Macintosh is TextMate. TextMate brings Apple's approach to operating systems into the world of text editors. TextMate cherry picks the best of both worlds, both from the Apple and the OS, to the benefit of expert scripters and novice users alike. It's a very reliable editor that's continuing to be updated to support additional scripting languages. It's got a lot of new updates for HTML5 and CSS3. It has excellent documentation. The URL is below for the macromates.com site, and TextMate, the website, is right here. A little bit pricey. It's, I think the last time I checked it was $54. Very, very good text editor. I mean, if you're really going to get into doing a lot of scripting or a lot of programming language writing, it will handle most anything you'll want to do. It's got a really good website. It has excellent documentation. All right, the next one we're going to talk about for the Macintosh is Smultron, a text editor for Mac OS X that is designed for both beginners and advanced users. It was originally written for web developers, but has grown to support many functions of development. Very inexpensive. Right now, I think the current price is $5. It has a unique feature of allowing you to compare two sets of code and identifies the differences in the code. I can't overemphasize how unique and important that is. Being able to compare two different code sets and finding the differences as you're developing your pages, especially when you get into PHP and JavaScript, it comes in very handy, because if you're using some of the code that I've written and you've loaded that code and you've written your code and it's not working quite the way mine is working, that's a great tool for comparing those two and finding the difference, because the differences, especially when you're into programming language like JavaScript and PHP, could be as simple as a semicolon or a comma or a quotation mark. So being able to compare those two sets of code and find the differences is a remarkable tool. Most text editors don't do that unless you get to the higher end ones. and we'll talk about some of them later. But Smoltron is an excellent tool that supports color coding of the code found in some of the more expensive development tools. And for Smoltron, we actually have the website loaded up here. Very, very powerful editor, extremely inexpensive, $5 for Smoltron 6. And it has a ton of features that are built into it. It's constantly being updated. It's got a very clean and intuitive UI, user interface. It allows you to merge windows. And as you can see by the website, I mean, there's a lot of good information here on how you can configure it. It's got frequently asked questions. Really, really good text editor for the Macintosh. All right, let's continue on. And the next one we'll talk about is BBEdit 10.5. This is paid. This is probably one of the best professional HTML text editors for the Mac. It's developed specifically for web developers on the Macintosh. You can download a free trial version to test for 30 days. It's for professional web developers. Excellent tool. The website I've got loaded up here at Barebone Software. These are the same people that write Text Wrangler. Text Wrangler is kind of a stripped down version of BBEdit. BBEdit's been around for a long time. Excellent documentation. It's a really, really good text editor. You can download your free trial version right here. I believe they'll let you use it for 30 days without paying for anything. And it's really good. A little bit above, I think, what you're going to need starting out as you're learning web development. But it's one to keep in mind if you're working on the Macintosh and you want to move into a much more professional text editor. BBEdit is the one to look at because it really is a professional text editing tool for the Mac. There are many excellent text editors that can be purchased and are free for the Macintosh. Keep in mind that price is not always the best factor to judge an HTML or web editor as you're moving forward deciding what you're going to use to go through this training. There are some really good editors that include many advanced features just for web development. BBEdit's a good example. An excellent text editor, but a little bit pricey. I believe right now, the last time I looked, it's running around $70, $75. If you're just starting out, that can be a little pricey. Text Wrangler, another excellent editor for the Macintosh that's available for free and written by the same developers as BBEdit. Okay, so now let's look at a few of the editors that are supported for both the Macintosh and the PC. This can become important. If you're used to working on both platforms, which many of us are, many of us write both on the Macintosh and on the PC, it's always good to have a text editor that you can learn on one platform and port to the other. Not only for the files themselves, because you can move the files around regardless of what editor you're using because they're plain text files, but the fact that you get used to a certain workflow in a text editor if you're working on the Macintosh, and it would be nice if you could take that same workflow over to the PC. If you're using an editor that works on both systems, the workflows will be very, very similar. So now let's talk about a few of these editors that you can use on both the PC and the Macintosh. All right, so now we're going to look at editors that support both PC and the Macintosh. And again, I want to emphasize how important it is if you're using both platforms, both hardware platforms, PC and Mac, it's important to have a tool that will work on both. So as you learn your workflow, you'll be able to transfer that workflow from the Macintosh to the PC or the PC to the Macintosh. Again, not very important on the file structures themselves because you can move the files between the two systems. They're text files. But the importance of understanding your workflow, and when you get comfortable with the workflow, being able to move them between the two different systems if you're going to be developing on both can become very important. The first one we're going to look at is Bluefish 2.2. A text editor developed for both the Macintosh and the PC. This is my favorite free editor for both systems. It's lightweight, it's full-featured, it's developed under an open source development license. It's multi-platform, it runs in both Linux, Mac OS X, Windows, and Solaris. And occasionally I'll be using Bluefish on occasion as we work through exercises of the tutorials. You'll see the URL below the screen where you can actually go to look at some more features of this text editor. Bluefish is a powerful editor targeted towards programmers and web developers with many options to write web pages, scripts, and programming code. Bluefish supports many programming and markup languages, as you'll see in a minute when we go to the website. It's an open source development project released under a GNU GPL open source license, which means, again, it's open. You can actually make modifications to the license or to the application itself if you need to support your workflow, if you have that expertise. It's multi-platform application that runs on most desktop operating systems, including Linux, FreeBSD, Mac OS X, Windows, OpenBSD, and Solaris. The current latest release at the time of the recording is 2.2.5, but most important of all, it's free. It's actually a free application. Let's go and look at their website. The Bluefish has an excellent website, a lot of good documentation, a lot of good screenshots. They have tutorials as to how to use it and the best workflow procedures for it, depending on what you're doing. It was originally written for CSS and HTML, but now it supports many additional languages with plugins. It's a really good platform as a text editor. And again, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. The site works mainly on donations. So if you're interested in using Bluefish, you've got the URL. Let's go to that one. The next one we're going to talk about is Adobe Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver is by far the most popular professional web development software that's in existence. It offers power and functionality that crosses many different development languages. Of course, for that functionality, there's a pretty steep price to pay. This package is not cheap, and the learning curve is steep. It takes a long time to learn all the functionality of Dreamweaver. I do occasionally use it. You'll see me bring it on our desktop in some of the tutorials just so you can see some of the features that are available in Dreamweaver. It is pretty pricey because right now they actually sell them in series. They have a web development series, both professional and intermediate. We can actually go to their website. You can see the actual information they have on just Dreamweaver if you want to buy it personally. Right now, they have what's called the Creative Cloud. You can actually run Dreamweaver in the cloud, and you pay a monthly fee. I'm not too keen on that plan. I mean, I haven't tried it yet. There are some advantages to it because, I mean, a lot of software development companies are going that route. Even Microsoft is going that route with Office. Haven't tried it in either platform, but I like owning the software that I'm using. I like having the disk and becoming used to the software. It doesn't change every time I load it, and I don't like being online to have to use things. The next thing we're going to talk about, or the next one, is some PC editors that are available for the PC. One thing I do want to mention, though, before we move forward, is that I use Sublime Text 2. Sublime Text 2 is also a package that's available for both the PC and the Mac. When I originally wrote this software, it was only available on the PC. With their newest version, Sublime Text 2.0.2, it's now available for the OS X, for Windows, Windows 64-bit, Linux 32, and Linux 64-bit. Sublime Text 2 is an excellent text editor. I use it on most of the stuff that I write. I've been using it for years. It's a little expensive. It's about $70 for a text editor. That's kind of pricey, but for all the things that it does, as you'll see as we go through our tutorials, it really is a good text editor, and it's now available for both the PC and the Macintosh. All right, so let's go on, and we're going to move on, and we're going to look at some text editors that are written for the PC. All right, so let's look at some editors that are available for the PC. And the first one we're going to talk about is Notepad++. It's a free editor. It's very, very popular. In fact, I would say that probably 90% of the students that I've instructed have used Notepad++ both at the university level and online. It's another excellent free editor for the PC that supports several languages. It runs in a Windows platform only, uses code hinting, has numerous plugins that are available to add to its functionality. It has syntax highlighting, syntax folding, and those are just a couple of features that are available in Notepad++. Let's go over to their website. You'll see right here I've got it pulled up. Never did like the little icon they use, but they've been using that for years. It is free. It's a great little editor. I mean, it does a lot of cool things. It's got color syntaxing. The current version 6.6.8. They've got a great website with a lot of news and downloads and features and resources and all kinds of good stuff that's available for that particular web editor. It's probably the most popular free editor for the PC that's out there. The next one we're going to talk about is Komodo Edit. Komodo Edit has a free trial. It used to be a free piece of software. It was available free for a long, long time, but as they've developed it, it's become much more robust. In my view, it's one of the best XML editors on the market. XML is one of the scripting languages that we use as we develop websites. It's being used in a lot of different things now, XML, extensible markup language. A lot of configuration files now for a lot of popular applications are written in XML. It includes many great features for developing in HTML and CSS, plus there are numerous extensions available to expand the development environment. As your knowledge grows in the field of web development, so too can Komodo Edit, based on these plugins. It's an excellent basic HTML text editor. They've also got a very good website. That's their actually pricing page. But Komodo Edit has a very good IDE and also got a very good editor. A lot of features. You can do a lot of different things with Komodo Edit. Very, very popular. And like I said, up until just about a year ago, it actually was a free editor. But because it's become so robust and it supports so many different platforms now, there is a price to pay for that functionality. You can download a free trial version if you want to try it, as most editors can. And it's a very good editor. One of the other ones we're going to talk about is Sublime Text 2, and this is the one I've been telling you about since we started this tutorial. I'm currently using version 2, but version 3 is in beta and will soon be released. I've actually been one of the beta testers for Sublime Text 3. A lot of new features are coming that are going to be available in Sublime Text 3 to support a lot of the new scripting languages for the web, to include HTML5 and CSS3. With the many different areas that I develop in, HTML, HTML5, CSS, CSS3, JavaScript, jQuery, PHP, MySQL, Flash, C, Visual C, and C++, I have found that this text editor works best for me because it supports all those languages and a bunch more. It has a lot of stuff available for Perl, as you'll see as we work through some of the tutorials. It has wide support base, numerous add-ons to make my development time very efficient. You'll see as we work through the exercises some of the features of this excellent editor. It is $70, but it is an excellent text editor. If you get very serious about what you're doing on the web, this is probably, next to Dreamweaver, one of the most popular editors in use. And a lot of people will use this instead of Dreamweaver because they actually want to write the code and they don't want to use a graphical user interface and have code written for them. I use Sublime Text 2 almost exclusively in what I'm doing. Let's look at the website for Sublime Text 2. Very basic site. One of the good things about Sublime Text 2 is, as of the last version, it supports numerous operating systems: OS 10, Windows 64-bit, which is very unusual. In 64-bit, you don't see too many text editors that will support a 64-bit operating system. I use 64-bit OSs on all my platforms. So that comes in handy because it allows me to do more things at the same time. It allows for multi-processing tasks by having that available. It also supports Linux 32 and Linux 64-bit. Excellent website, really good documentation. There's a lot of stuff on the web and on YouTube as for classes on how to use Sublime Text 2. In fact, lynda.com actually has a class on this text editor, which is very unusual to find a full-blown written class. I think it's about an 8-hour class written just for Sublime Text 2 and all the different things that it can do. Really, really good text editor. And it's the one that you'll see me use most often as we go through the training. Okay, so we've looked at only a few that are available to get you started. There are hundreds of text editors available on the web. Go to Google, make a text editor search for the PC or the Macintosh, depending upon what platform you're working on, and you're going to find hundreds of different text editors that are out there. We've only covered the top probably 5 of each platform. There are hundreds. The PC and the Macintosh both have a wide range of editors available, and only you can choose the best one for your particular needs. You're going to find that as you start working through these tutorials, you're going to get comfortable with the workflow. I know I keep saying the workflow thing over and over again, but you're going to get comfortable with the workflow, and you're going to find a text editor that's probably suited for your workflow. Look at many different editors and experiment with them. You'll find one that will suit your needs and your budget as you progress throughout the lesson series. I'll use a variety of text editors as we work through the exercises, keeping in mind that you can use the tools that are best suited for your development style. There's no need to use exactly what I'm using. A text editor is a text editor. They just have different features. You'll develop a style and workflow that suits you as you progress through these exercises. Guidelines for your web development journey. These are things that you want to keep in mind as you're learning how to develop web pages and websites. Focus on writing clean and efficient code structure. We'll emphasize that throughout our tutorials. You want to keep things clean, you want to keep things organized, and you want to keep things well documented. You're going to see me add a lot of notes and comments to the things that we're doing in the tutorials. That's for a purpose. I have learned over the course of many, many years that when you go back to a project a year later or 2 years later to make some changes to it or to tweak it, it's great to have those notes inside that project so that you know where your head was at when you were writing that initial code. It makes it a lot easier to make modifications to it and to change things. Structure your HTML so that it adds meaning to the content of the page. Remember, HTML is structure, CSS is styling. We don't write HTML code to style our pages anymore. With the advent of HTML5, styling becomes specifically part of CSS, not HTML. So we want to structure our HTML code so that it adds meaning to our content in the way that we're putting it together. You're going to see as you start going through the HTML and the HTML5 lessons that we have specific tags now for helping us to better structure the content of our pages. Focus on content and not on styling when you're writing HTML. Once we move into CSS, that will become your tool for styling your web pages. CSS, for anyone that's not aware, is cascading style sheets. We've been using CSS for about the last 7 or 8 years. With the advent of HTML5, we have what's now called CSS3, and it is much more powerful in styling our web pages. There's a lot of things we can do in CSS3 that we've never been able to do before, which eliminates a lot of the need for JavaScript in our websites. As we move forward, keep these tips in mind. The purpose of HTML is to provide a structure to the content that helps to convey meaning to the viewer. While we build our pages, let's keep this in mind, and you'll find that your code will become more efficient as you develop your web pages. And again, I'll emphasize this as we go through the code training exercises. We will be studying best practices and practicing best practices as we go through all the training. This will also add to your ability to maintain your code once your site's been developed. So for wrapping up, so there you have it. Look at some of the tools available for designing HTML documents. You'll find that many of these tools can serve multiple purposes as we work through the tutorials, not only developing HTML documents, but many of the supporting languages of the web. CSS, CSS3, JavaScript, ActionScript, and PHP, to name a few. Though these development languages may be unfamiliar to you now, soon they will not be, and once you learn a tool and become familiar with its use, you'll see that one tool can serve many purposes. So one text editor will serve multiple purposes as you learn to develop your websites. Because most text editors, in fact all the ones that we've talked about, not only support HTML and HTML5, but they also support CSS, CSS3, JavaScript, ActionScript, and PHP. So welcome to On Target HTML5. I hope you enjoy your visit. You have a basic understanding of the text editors that we need to write our web pages. Now let's get started moving forward with our learning of the HTML language. I really enjoy hearing from the users of the website. If you have any comments or suggestions for the site, just drop me a line and I'll be glad to consider them. If you'd like to see additional information added to this tutorial, drop me a line and I would be glad to consider that also. I will constantly be updating my tutorials. Thank you and good luck on your journey into web development.